Welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 7. This is the sixth and final rewatch episode for Next Generation. I combined up seasons 1 and 2 into one episode and then did season by season as we went forward. So this is the final season, Season 7. A strange downturn. I was really surprised at how, if I have to rate now all the seasons, I think I would rate season 6 the absolute best. 3, 4, and 5, kind of in the same area. Then seasons 1 and 2, then season 7. There were very few episodes that I liked in this season, and the finale was so far from satisfying. But I'll get to that. I mean, it's no fault of theirs. I think it's something about finales for me that are impossible, especially when you've been watching the show for like 7-10 years. Anywho, so for the most part, this season, I definitely felt that the theme I think the writers were going for was that we were wrapping up family matters, as it were. Troy finds out she had a baby sister that died, and she has this conversation with her dad in one episode. Wesley finally goes off to become a traveler, and so odd episode too, in that we don't really get any kind of grieving from. Well, it wasn't that he was going away forever, actually. I forgot that, but he was going to stay behind on this colony to kind of pursue with his Native Americans. So anyway, that thing, we found out about Geordi's mom, where Geordi's mom died, and then there was this whole episode where he thought she was still alive. I think who the hell knew, that he had any relationship with his mom before now, that she was even alive? No idea. Data all of a sudden has a mother, which I didn't think worked at all. I didn't think that episode was really it just felt fake. It just felt like, what else are we going to do with Data? We're wrapping up everybody's family. How about if he had a mother? What about, Dr. Sung's wife? So there was this whole mother-son thing there, but as much as the father-son stuff with Sung works, I just didn't think it worked, and it was just a weird thing. Worf with Rozhenko, right, his brother, his human brother, and then Picard. There was this episode where he thought maybe he had a son. It was a whole plot to mess with him, but so a lot of the episode was him saying, "Okay, this is my son now, and what is he like, and what am I going to teach him, and all that." So it really was an overarching theme of family and all this. Now, the funny thing is, normally those are the episodes that really work in Next Gen when they're dealing with family stuff and it's character based. In the seasons that have come before this, those episodes usually I like a lot. They tug at my heartstrings. They're great for the character. They tend to make the story of the week resonant with the they make it resonate with whatever's happening in their kind of family life. But it just felt like these were so perfunctory. None of the family stuff felt like. What it felt like was we've run out of things to do with these characters. And my personal belief is that I always find that television series that I like, that you kind of run out of character development after 5 seasons, 6 seasons even. There's nothing more to do. They've been through the ringer. You've explored their personal foibles. You've dealt with their family issues. They've gone through whatever they've gone through. And for 26 episode, TV shows, I think me personally, by the 4th or 5th season, I didn't finish watching Downton Abbey. By the 5th season of Downton Abbey, I was like, where are you going with these characters now? I'm done. 5th season of Game of Thrones, I was done. And I just feel like these longer shows, there reaches a saturation point where now it's going to be melodrama. Now it's going to be babies and cancer and long-lost brother-in-laws. And that's what this felt like. All of the family stuff, the Picard thing was very tacked on. We never even knew Troy had a sister, or she had this fractured relationship with her dad. We never knew, Geordi had a, well, obviously he had a mom, but that never came up in any episode before now. Data's mother, just out of nowhere, never anything about her. And the Rozhenkos, the only thing that was there before, we've met Alexander Rozhenko. So that was there. And of course, Wesley and Beverly. But again, for the most part, I really found, I recognized that that was the theme. Wasn't having it. I didn't think it really worked in most episodes, which is kind of a bummer. So yeah, I will go down my very short list of episodes that I did like. Descent, part 1 and part 2. So Descent part 2, when Lore has taken control of these rogue Borgs. And we finally meet Hugh again, which I was happy about. I wasn't so happy that at the end of the first episode, that Lore pops up again. I'm not a big Lore fan, to be honest. Like it's almost like Loki Thor. I'm like, he pops up. He's always a bad guy. Nothing ever really happens between the two. Data tries to kind of come to him, and he takes advantage of Data's character, does something nefarious. It all gets fixed at the end, and he's off. We don't know where the hell he is. So I was bummed that he was there, but I liked that Hugh was there, and that Hugh was against Lore. And Hugh kind of was off to the side with his own group. So it ended in a decent, way, a way that I was happy with. Gambit was there, and it's funny when I see Gambit. Gambit has Richard Lynch in it as the main bad guy of, it's Picard on that ship where he's undercover. And we don't even know it until like later in the episode when Riker winds up on the ship, and we see Picard sitting at one of the stations, and he's like in character, right? So, a decent two-parter. They're trying to find, they're going after this resonator or this device that's going to be used. But it's funny to see Richard Lynch because he's been in so many 70s TV shows. He was in a show called The Phoenix with Judson Scott, which was a very short-lived show that was on. Judson Scott from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, who played Joaquin. But he's just been in 1,000 70s TV shows, always the bad guy. And I think at some point he lit himself on fire, which is why he's kind of has this weird kind of scarred to the puffy face, which is he got drunk or fucked up on drugs one day and like lit himself on fire. But anyway, it was fun. And one thing I liked about Gambit was that because Riker's gone and Picard's gone, Data has to take command. And Data and Worf, there's some conflict where Data is he's running the show and he's figuring out what he's going to do. And Worf's like on him. Like, why are you doing this? You should be doing that. And Data has to like get him in the ready room and say, listen, I'm in command. You're under me. You can question stuff, but not in front of the crew. And once I give an order, I expect it to be followed. And Worf immediately is mollified and he gets it. But it was a good moment for Data. I think one of his first commands. There was another command in another episode when they thought the Romulans were going to come over the neutral zone. And he was assigned some ship and some idiot captain who had a thing against androids. It's the same kind of dynamic. Didn't trust Data, didn't believe in him. But this was Worf this time. So there was good conflict on the Enterprise while, Riker and Picard are on this other ship. So I enjoyed Gambit. Then they did Force of Nature, which is an episode where it's kind of a famous episode where they find out that the warp fields that they generate are slowly eroding the fabric of space-time. And it's a funny episode because it's a great episode in that it's a direct, it's climate change, right? And it's climate change in 1991 or whenever the show ended, whenever these aired, 90 or 91 or 92. And it's talking about climate change, wonderful episode of sort of looking forward. But at the same time, they shot themselves in the foot because at the end of the episode, they kind of recognized that it is true. And the person who proved it died, but she was right. And the research was sound. And then supposedly now there's this warp 5 limit. But they break it all the time. A couple of episodes you hear, we've been authorized to go to warp 9, whatever. So it's sort of like the fact that they made the episode and that they made the episode end with the fact that, yes, the warp fields are they are tearing the fabric of space-time. First of all, great idea. But now you've hamstrung some of your future plots. You don't hear anything about this in the Generation movies. You don't hear about it in Picard. They kind of dropped it because I think they realized, a lot of our plots, we're going to maximum warp, we're going to warp 8. Like, we can't be doing the warp 5. So it's kind of funny that happened. So there's an episode called The Pegasus. It's kind of like a little Philadelphia experiment kind of thing where, they have to go and find this ship. The Pegasus was experimenting with this kind of Federation cloaking technology, but it was really like a interphasic shield where, they can pass through solid matter. So not only is it a cloak, but they can pass through things. And it's a pretty good episode. Like, it's we're seeing a side of the Federation that we haven't seen before. Terry O'Quinn, who is famous for being in Lost, and he was also in Millennium and some other Chris Carter shows. Great character actor on TV. He's in it as the ex-commander of the Pegasus, and we hear that, in the past, Riker, they tried to mutiny against him, and Riker stood up and protected him, and now Riker has to kind of decide whether he wants to do that again. But pretty good episode. And again, the fact that the Federation was kind of developing this new technology, which the Federation supposedly in these treaties that it has said, we're not going to ever develop cloaking technology because that's not who we are as a Federation. So a little bit of Deep Space Nine-ish themes creeping in where the Federation is doing not so great stuff, but it was a good episode. Then Lower Decks. This is the best episode of the season, hands down. Really great episode with a tough ending. I don't know if the TV show in any way resembles this episode. I know I think it's an animated TV show called Lower Decks, which I haven't seen. But man, what a great episode from the point of view of, some undershipmen, midshipmen. And most of the action takes place from their point of view. And, one of these midshipmen came from kind of a checkered past. And there's this wonderful, Picard kind of berates her. And it's a Picard we've never seen before, like a Picard who's never treated a crewman in that way ever. And she's got to come back from that, and then his response. So what a powerful episode. And then it ends on a very down note, which I thought was incredible. But really well written, really well acted, like really punched through of a season of episodes that mostly to me were throwaways or boring. This one just came out of nowhere. Favorite episode of the season. Really, really good. Then you had Journey's End, which, they're dealing with Native American repatriation. This Native American tribe, settles on a planet in the demilitarized zone, and then the Federation makes this treaty with Cardassians, and all of a sudden that planet now is no longer Federation territory. And they want to relocate the American Indians who refuse. And Wesley gets involved. And basically by the end of the episode, Wesley kind of resigns from Starfleet, and now he's going to pursue more of his traveler persona, where we saw, half a dozen episodes back, this traveler that came on board, kind of almost a spiritual, spectral being, kind of recognizes Wesley is the same for whatever reason. And now this is Wesley stepping into that and leaving Starfleet, and they kind of tied in with like Native American spirituality. Like he's going to go on a vision quest to try to figure out what his kind of identity is as this traveler persona. So, kind of not the greatest episode, but kind of a sending off for Wesley, which was okay. Again, I don't think any of the kind of family wrap-up episodes really worked in this season. So, but it was of all of them, this was at least decent. And then Preemptive Strike, which is the second best episode for me of this whole season, which is really great. Ensign Ro is back, and I love her. She's really great. Wish she would have stayed on and been, Deep Space Nine instead of Kira Nerys. But, life is life. But wonderful, where she's back. She's just graduated from advanced tactical school, and now, she goes undercover with the Maquis. Winds up sympathizing with them, and then they have the Federation is laying a trap for them, and she's got to make this decision at the very end, which is wonderful. And she makes the decision, to stay with them and to not to betray them. She's really found her people, and Picard's really the last shot of the episode is a long take rotating shot on Picard where he's just looking out, looking very grim, very angry, disappointed at her choice, that she made. And I love that at one point she's in control of the shuttle. She has Riker at gunpoint, and she's about to transfer him back to the Enterprise, and she just says, tell the captain I'm sorry. I made the right decision, but what hurts the most is that I disappointed him, which is wonderful. And what's great is they pay this off in season 3 of Picard, which is wonderful. That's kind of paid off, and those two kind of come back together again, and she's redeemed in a certain way, which is wonderful. But yeah, really great episode. And then all good things, the finale. So my little rant about this is that it's very hard to do a series finale, I think, unless you've planned it in advance, and kind of how everything's going to wrap up. I think it's very hard. So I'll hack on this episode a little bit, but think about the Seinfeld finale. Like, I think the MASH finale for me maybe is the only one that really worked, because the war, it was kind of a no-brainer. The war is over, and they're all going home, and so they wrapped up kind of all their stories in a certain way. Winchester, I think, was the most unsatisfying because he kind of goes off stage without reconciling with anybody, kind of a pill. But for all the other characters, it was really wonderful ending, and there was something very final about it, right? The Seinfeld ending was kind of, I get what Larry David did, I kind of get it, but I don't think it was too satisfying for most fans. Although that's a sitcom, so there's not. I mean, what arcs do we really care about? So that doesn't even really matter so much. I bailed on Lost pretty early, so I can't talk about Lost. And there was no season finale to, the original series, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, in a weird way, it would have been interesting to use the season to set up character things that would have paid off in the finale. So I guess what my armchair quarterback thing is that rather than have the whole episode is really about crazy Picard. He might be crazy. He might not be crazy. He's flipping back and forth through time, having to solve this big puzzle to save humanity. And I feel like, what they did was they decided was let's have a finale that has a big scope, where it's like, he's got to not only save the world, he's got to save humanity. It's just somehow humanity has been destroyed, and only Jean-Luc Picard can save it, right? And so I feel like they figured that would be a big enough thing. You go out really on a big note in that way. But to me, it's like it's just an episode because it's all about Picard. So you're not dealing with any of the other characters, and then the episode ends, he wins, and then they're at a card table, and that's that. I would have liked, I think, that for them to set up some character endings during the season. And then in the finale, pay off with Data. Data takes the emotion chip. Riker decides he's going to finally take the Titan gig. Maybe we see Troy and Riker heading, that decide they're going to get married. Worf was already off the show, I think. He wasn't. And you could have been a Worf goes to DS9. So he's leaving. Go from there. Like Geordi set something up for Geordi where he's going to do something. So in a weird way, but I guess, what? They were thinking about movies. So they couldn't, I guess part of this too is they couldn't really disperse the crew because I guess they got the green light to do some next gen movies and they made 4 of them. And I'm going to do a little bit of I watched them recently. I'm going to do a wrap up on another episode talking about those movies. So I guess the deal was, you can't really put paid. I guess they were hamstrung because look, if we're going to go off and do movies, we have to leave the crew together. And the only thing that we have to deal with is Worf being on DS9. And in each episode, in each movie, they do it well. Worf winds up back on, in Generations, he's still on the ship. In First Contact, he's in the Defiant. They beam him back aboard. And then I think Deep Space Nine is over by the time you get to Insurrection. So he's back on the Enterprise for the last 2 movies. But yeah, I guess they were hamstrung by the fact that they could not they couldn't close off these characters' arcs, and they couldn't get, no one can leave the Enterprise because of the movies. And that they had to wait till kind of Nemesis to do a few things with the movie anyway. So anyway, it was very unsatisfying. It was just, you got tired of Picard flipping around through time, trying to convince people. And it was a clever idea. There was a TV miniseries called Triangle that came, I think, in the early 2000s. That was the same thing, whereas like the solution to the puzzle was the fact that something was caused in the future and went back through time. And I wonder if the Rockne O'Bannon, who wrote that, I wonder if he got it from this episode. But yeah, so that ends the season. I mean, my thoughts about the series in a whole, I mean, it really, from the original series, it really broke open the world of Star Trek. I mean, what Next Gen has done for Star Trek can never be equaled. The Klingon lore, I mean, what do we see the Klingons in, like 5 episodes in the original series? Now we've got lore, we've got their government, all of these rituals and rites, and all this, the Klingon High Council and all this stuff, like the Klingon culture and government. Has become a huge part of the Trek canon now, but it was all created by Next Gen, right? All of it by Next Gen, and most of it after Roddenberry had kind of let go of the reins and or passed away. And I think Ron Moore was a big part of that. I think he was kind of the Klingon guy, the kind of Klingon expert, I think, that brought a lot of that stuff in. So that was huge. The Data character, was kind of, I feel like there's always one of those characters. You had Spock, you had Data, you have Tuvok on Voyager. Deep Space Nine really didn't have that kind of character. Enterprise, you have T'Pol. So like, there's kind of a similar kind of advisor character who's stoic or very smart, whatever, in a lot of these shows. And Data was just an incredible creation. I mean, even more than Spock. I mean, Spock's amazing, but Data just had more episodes and more time to breathe as a character. He was incredible. I don't think any of the other characters were that amazing. Like Geordi's Geordi. Worf is, Worf, again, with the Klingons, Worf goes along with the Klingon stuff. Beverly Crusher was fine. The stuff with her and Wesley and just the ship's doctor, obviously, there is a history there and she's a full fleshed on character, but I would say B tier, obviously everyone else, Troy and Crusher and Geordi, all kind of B tier characters. And Picard, obviously, usually the captain gets most of the good storylines. Really Kirk and Spock, Picard and Data, they get the big storylines. But it was incredible in how it opened up the Federation, introducing the Cardassians, the Borg. I think the Dominion was introduced by Deep Space Nine, but just the galaxy has become now a much richer, more culturally diverse place. And it was all because of Next Gen. Like it really did so much to open up the world. So I was really I'm blown away by it. It's still, to me, top tier, one of the best, golden era Trek shows. Really, really wonderful rewatching. So much in the 7 seasons that are there. There's just so much there. So much good Trek. So many great character moments. So many great stories. Very uneven. That's a given. 26 episodes a season. It's a very uneven show. There's a lot of fluff in almost every season. A lot of clunky episodes, except for season 6, which has minimal amounts. But there's a lot of spotty, uneven episodes that are just boring. But I said for seasons 1 and 2, maybe a third of the episodes were great. Seasons 3, 4, and 5, nearly half were good. Season 6, almost 3/4. And then season 7, like a quarter, frankly. But yeah, so that's my kind of finishing the wrap up of my Next Gen rewatch. I'm just starting Enterprise now, so hopefully I'll be posting some Star Trek Enterprise. I haven't rewatched it. Well, I've never rewatched it, actually. I've only watched it once through. So looking forward to it, because it's been a while. I forgot a lot about it, about what the main storylines are and what the main characters are. So I'm starting the first episode, I think, tonight. So hopefully you'll see some season recaps in the next couple of weeks. And that's that. And also I'm going to post a show about the 4 Next Gen movies. I watched them and I will be reviewing them all in one show to kind of finish off the Next Gen. I'm not touching Picard because the first 2 seasons are just so bad. But so look out for that show to come. Thanks for watching.